When Jesus received the news of John the Baptist's death, he withdrew by boat to a lonely place where they could be by themselves. But the people heard of this and, leaving the towns, went after him on foot. So, as he stepped ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he took pity on them and healed their sick. One April morning in 2005, I learned that my father had died suddenly at our home in La Joqueta. At the time, I was serving as pastor of a fairly extensive rural parish in northeast Trinidad, Toco and Matlot. Unfortunately, that very weekend, there was a wedding at one of our small chapels, and it was much too late to get a substitute priest. At the time, I remember I had the assistance of a young Nigerian confrere, Father Michael, but he did not have a license to officiate at weddings as I did. We therefore arranged that we would both go to the ceremony. He would officiate in my presence, and at the end, I would sign the marriage documents. I have no idea what subsequently became of the couple, but I do remember, however, that being there at that time in that ceremony cost me a great deal. I was being asked to minister to the spiritual needs of my flock in the midst of personal crisis. In the reading from Matthew's Gospel today, Jesus has arrived at a similar moment in his life. John, his predecessor and mentor, had been executed, and as if to recover from this inner wound, to grieve in relative silence, Matthew says, Jesus withdrew by boat to a lonely place where they could be by themselves. In 2005, I too wanted to withdraw to a lonely place where I could be by myself. But like Jesus, the people, in other words, the pastoral demands placed on me, followed me, heard of this, and went after me on foot. Since my ordination to the priesthood, I have often struggled mightily with a temptation that is perhaps very common to all of us. And the temptation is this: I sometimes find it very hard, even unfair, that in the middle of my own personal pain or loss or discomfort, when I need the soothing balm of silence and solitude, life comes rushing in, and I find myself dealing with the drama of others. As I write this reflection, my own small tropical country, Trinidad and Tobago, is being flooded with waves of desperate Venezuelan migrants from our next door neighbor, even as the political and social situation there begins to unravel. Trinidad and Tobago also finds itself struggling to come to grips with a health crisis of its own. And in the middle of our attempts to address the coronavirus pandemic in our midst, we are now faced with so many more mouths to feed, many of them belonging to persons who may not have been properly quarantined. I can imagine that many of my countrymen feel a deep sense of dismay at all of this and are rightly concerned with the maintenance of our country's finite resources and the possible health risk posed by persons among us who could possibly be vectors of disease. We would also like, as a people, to withdraw to a lonely place where we could be by ourselves. We are deeply tempted to take refuge at this time in isolationism. But the Lord, who has blessed us with whatever abundance we have, has also placed new and daunting responsibilities on our shoulders. I am reminded here of the words of our own Holy Father, Pope Francis, for the 51st World Day of Peace, where he speaks prophetically of migrants. And this is what the Holy Father writes: "The wisdom of faith fosters a contemplative gaze that recognizes that all of us belong to one family, migrants and the local populations that welcome them, and all have the same right to enjoy the goods of the earth, whose destination is universal, as the social doctrine of the Church teaches." The challenge which faces Trinbagonians at this time, then, is to leave behind the mentality which sees the Vennis as new competitors for already scarce resources, and instead adopt the generosity of God's Son, who, upon seeing the crowds, took pity on them and healed their sick. I have confidence in Trinidad and Tobago, and I believe that given time, my people will respond positively to the challenge that is on our doorstep. The history of the people of Trinidad and Tobago is one of generosity and openness to people from all cultures, from all walks of life. Scratch a Trinbagonian and you find many other nationalities. And many people have beaten a path to our doorstep and have found a welcoming word, a place to call home. A proper reading, then, of Pope Francis's attitude towards migrants reveals a ministry with a balanced approach. The Supreme Pontiff goes on to propose 4 mileposts for actions with migrants: welcoming, protecting, promoting, and integrating. These are the 4 actions, or his 4 mileposts in our overall strategy towards migrants. With regard to welcoming, the Holy Father writes, "Welcoming calls for expanding legal pathways for entry and no longer pushing migrants and displaced people towards countries where they face persecution and violence. It also demands balancing our concerns about national security with concern for fundamental human rights." In other words, we have to balance 2 things. The rights of immigrants, the most fundamental, the rights of migrants, the most fundamental of which is the right to life, along with the good of the entire community, normally known in the Catholic tradition as the common good. Those conditions required for a truly human life. With Pope Francis, We need not sacrifice, therefore, one for the other. Fundamental human rights for the good of the community. So that in this difficult and challenging period which we face as Trinbagonians, I want to pray that we earnestly strive to do both, to remember our fundamental goodness and decency and generosity, and stretch out our hands to our Venezuelan sisters and brothers all the time and all the while, respecting the demands of the common good. God bless you.